Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Monday everybody. Over the weekend, Beijing hosted its so-called China Development Forum. The event is hosted by the State Council's think tank, the Development Research Center, and some have called it China's answer to Davos. Commentators observed that despite the now open borders and large Chinese market, very few US business leaders have attended this year's forum. One Beijing-based executive, speaking to Chinese financial media, expressed that American companies are trying to keep a low profile to avoid criticism back in the US. US-based Bloomberg, citing 3 unnamed sources, wrote on Friday, quote, "Specifically, companies don't want to become the target of the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, a new congressional body." End quote. Nevertheless, some US and other Western business and political leaders did attend, including former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and investor Ray Dalio, but a full list of attendees was not made available. On Saturday, a senior economic official at the party's Central Committee, Han Wenxiu, gave a special presentation on the medium to long-term obstacles to growth in China's economy. The Central Financial and Economic Affairs Commission Deputy Director expressed that China's 2 biggest challenges to long-term growth are its aging population and, quote, "external efforts to contain our rise." End quote. This is an interesting moment. International skeptics of Chinese growth prospects have long pointed to China's demographic crisis and its dependence on the wider US-led order for markets and imports as vulnerabilities undermining Chinese economic dynamism over the long term. Now, a senior Chinese official at a flagship event is agreeing that these are indeed serious obstacles to medium to long-term growth. In response to these challenges, Han said that China must, quote, "turn external pressures into endogenous power," end quote, and increase Chinese self-sufficiency. He points to the new energy vehicle sector as one of the many ways China is reducing its dependence on foreign imports. But frankly, such initiatives only put a small dent into reducing China's massive appetite for foreign energy. Han's policy recommendation for the aging population challenge was equally light on details, simply expressing that China must further improve policies to support services for the elderly and encourage people to have more children. However, as we have explored in previous videos, even if China could now produce a surge in births, this would only lightly mitigate the current trend of rapid aging and demographic decline. Meanwhile, on the same day, Apple's CEO Tim Cook gave a speech for the event calling for China's youth to embrace technology innovation, especially programming skills, expressing, quote, "coding is critical thinking skills. If they have that underlying skill, they can keep up with this world that is so fast moving with innovations. If they don't, I'm worried about losing kids along the way," end quote. He used the occasion to announce that Apple plans to increase spending on its rural education program to 100 million yuan, $14.6 million US. Also on the same day, Ray Dalio joined a panel to discuss the global economic outlook. In his comments, the US investor expressed that the world is going through a period of rising debt, inflation, and international geopolitical tensions, adding, quote, "what matters most is to have leaders who are strong enough to get their people to do the right and difficult things to navigate those turbulent conditions, and who are wise and restrained enough to avoid provocations that lead to regrettable internal and external wars that do more harm than good," end quote. Next up, the country of Honduras has switched its ties from the Republic of China, that is Taiwan, to the People's Republic of China, further shortening the former's dwindling list of official diplomatic partners. In recent days, Taiwan recalled its ambassador from Honduras. The People's Republic of China Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said China welcomed, quote, "the Honduran government's positive attitude towards building relations," end quote, and was willing to develop them on, quote, "the basis of equality and mutual respect," end quote. In a separate statement, the Foreign Ministry expressed, quote, "standing up for the One China principle is the right thing to do," end quote. And he said, quote, "it has the overwhelming support of the international community and represents the trend of the world," end quote. In response to a question from UK-based Reuters, about reports that one day before the Honduran president announced on Twitter that she would seek to establish diplomatic ties with China, she had privately asked Taiwan for $2.5 billion in aid. The PRC Foreign Ministry spokesperson expressed that such reports are, quote, preposterous and groundless, end quote. However, in a statement, Taiwan's foreign ministry warned Honduras to, quote, be careful of the risks of China's commitments made on its offer of diplomatic relations, end quote. And in a more unambiguous statement, leader Tsai Ing-wen expressed, quote, we will not engage in a meaningless money diplomatic contest with China, end quote. China has spent much time and resources for years in order to peel away Taiwan's short list of remaining official diplomatic partners, efforts which have been quite successful, the intent being to make Taiwan as internationally isolated as possible and to legitimize globally Beijing's claims over the island. Taiwan now has full official diplomatic relations with just 13 countries, mostly around the Caribbean. Analysts observe, however, that while official partners are very few, powerful unofficial partners with security interests in maintaining the status quo over the Taiwan Strait, namely the United States and Japan, along with others, are more important to have. On Sunday morning, the Foreign Office of Honduras tweeted, quote, there is only one China, and Taiwan is an inseparable part of Chinese territory, end quote. And finally, for today's video, libraries and institutions around the world have been notified that their access to the China National Knowledge Infrastructure, CNKI, will be restricted from next month to ensure that, quote, cross-border services are in compliance with the law, end quote. The database operator did not say when access might be resumed, leading some to worry that the suspension might become permanent. The China National Knowledge Infrastructure is a private-owned publishing company in China that owns a system called China Integrated Knowledge Resource System, which includes journals, doctoral dissertations, master's theses, newspapers, yearbooks, statistical yearbooks, ebooks, and other academic documents in China. According to the State Administration for Market Regulation, over 95% of Chinese academic papers that are formally published are available on the platform. The Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post spoke to academics about the move. One Netherlands doctoral student expressed to the outlet that the platform is, quote, a primary part of my PhD research because on-the-ground field work was not possible, end quote. And a French associate professor, quote, it provides one of the easiest means of searching through Chinese language media sources, academic journal articles, and government policy, end quote. The database remains open for scholars in China itself. The South China Morning Post reports that some academics have expressed concern that scholars outside the country will lose not only an important resource for understanding China, but also a useful guardrail to reduce misunderstanding between China and the West. Quote, academic contributions are invaluable for public debate and policymaking, especially in today's environment of increased geopolitical tension. Every measure that restricts these people's ability to understand China makes it more likely that political mistakes are made, end quote. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit that like button, and anyone who can go that extra mile and help me keep the channel sustainable, allow me to produce these videos every day, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I will see you all tomorrow.